Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're finally going to do the PC build after all the unboxings. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm going to go ahead and put up a parts list that you guys can take a look at. You can pause and look it up, but I'll go ahead and read out the parts anyway. So for the CPU, we're going with a Ryzen 7 5800X. The cooler is a EVGA CLC 360. The motherboard is a ASRock X570 Taichi Razer edition. The memory is a G.Skill 2x16GB DDR4 2933 MHz CL14 from my old rig. For the boot drive, we're going with a Samsung 980 Pro 500GB. And for the main storage drive, we're going with a WDBlack 6TB 7200 RPM SATA drive. The GPU is a EVGA 3090 XC3 Hybrid, and we're building it all in a Lian PC-011 Dynamic Razer edition. And the PSU is also from my old rig, which I'm fortunate to have overbought at the time. But I got a Seasonic Prime Ultra Titanium 1000 watt fully modular, so that was honestly my best purchase because if you look at prices now, it's kind of ridiculous. So let's get started with the build. So one of the first things I did is I basically re-unboxed the motherboard and I took out the CPU as well. Looking at everything, I realized that I would need to basically put the AM4 bracket for the cooler first. As I was unboxing it, I just used the back of the motherboard box to support this while I was doing the entire build. So this is, at the moment, I'm just taking out the CPU, and then in a minute I will realize that I would probably need to put the bracket, AM4 bracket, for the cooler first. As you can see on the top right, I have everything already taken out for what I'm going to do with the build. I have my cables out, I have the correct standoffs, and the correct bracket for the cooler. And here I am. I'm reading the instructions to make sure that I install it correctly. So to install the CLC 360 from EVGA, we basically take off the original brackets that come with the motherboard, and we screw in the AM4 standoffs for the cooler, and those are the ones that kind of look like the ones, if you look at the top right, there's just a small example there. As I unscrew the other ones, there are two types of, or they actually give AM3, AM4, and AM2 brackets, as well as all the Intel brackets. And on the top right there, the offset ring at the top is what goes on the actual cooler. And I'm just lifting it up right now and making sure I secured everything correctly. I took off the IO shield peel so I don't forget that. And I'm just doing the peel everywhere. There was a lot of peeling on this, but it's okay. It looked beautiful. And building it, I would completely wait until it's in the case before I would peel that one in the front because it gets the fingerprints really easy. So here I am, I'm installing the CPU right now. I'm looking for the triangle in the corner. I lift the retention bracket. I look for the diamond on the CPU and the motherboard. When you do make sure it's inserted, make sure you wiggle it from the side and not the center like I did. I made sure to clean it off properly with isopropyl before I mounted. So the reason I'm putting the M.2 in the middle, the second M.2 slot, because I was actually very confused with the top one. The way the top one is, you actually need to use the heat shield bracket to screw it down as opposed to the regular M.2 screw. So that kind of threw me off. So I put it in the second slot. And there are 3 screws that kind of screw everything back in place. And remember to take off the peel for the heatsink. So this is our progress so far. We have our CPU installed as well as our SSD. We are about ready to put it in the case. There's just one more thing that we need to do. is obviously we need to put the RAM slots in. So remember, you put it in every other slot. If you're not sure, your motherboard book will tell you. So let's go ahead and open up the case. I took out all three sides, the top, the back, and the front. As I was going through this, I finally took out the book, and I probably should have done this before because it would have saved me a lot of time in building. But in there is like the book on how to install everything, as well as all the screws. And I'm just opening it up here and just making sure that I get everything I need for my build ready. So what I'm doing now is I'm just removing the bottom two 2.5-inch drive so that I can put my fans in, and I'm just screwing in the motherboard right now. Everything looks great. It's a beautiful case to build in. It's nice and convenient. Has lots of huge grommets that you can fit everything through, as you'll see. If you take a look at what I've done now, is I've already started pre-wiring some of the front I/O and fans. So if you take a look, starting from the top right, we have the USB-C, the USB 2.0. From the bottom left, we have the HD audio, then the fan splitters, the RGB on the case, and then the power switch. Now we're just gonna go ahead and put the fans. So I have these Noctua Industrials that I'm gonna go ahead and put in, and they look absolutely gorgeous in the case. So as I was wiring the fans, I realized that the splitters were not going to fit in the front header for the fans. So I went ahead and used the cable extension from the motherboard to the back of the case and put the fan splitter there. And I connected all three fans to that 3 splitter. And make sure you check your motherboard's amperage limits before you do that. So these are it when it's in, and these are all the fan wires that I have ready to be tied down and cable managed. They're already pretty cable managed together, but it's easy to change them out when I need to change them out. There's just a quick look at it. All right. So now this one took a little while to do. So for the AIO cooler, this is going to be side mounted. I saw I just had enough space to be able to do it, so the pipe approaches from the bottom as opposed to the top. I realized while I was doing this that all the fans need to be kind of swapped the other way, because the way they were placed, the wiring for the fan was coming from the right side if your pipes are from the bottom, if your intake is from the bottom. So I went ahead, and as I was doing this, I had realized what I needed to do as I was doing this. So I took it out and I flipped all the fans the other way, and now we have all the fan wires going the correct way towards the grommet, so we're not having to use a bunch more extensions. We can just kind of put everything through the back there. And the AIO does have a fan splitter on it, remember that. So you do not need to purchase any additional fan splitters for that. And this is right now I'm just screwing down the AIO cooler. So that took a little while, but everything fit. So we put in the hard drive. This is the drive cage. I went ahead and put the anti-vibration screws in, and I went ahead and just slid it in there. I didn't need the second PSU. So for cables, I went ahead and got some gray cables, carbon gray, carbon black cables from CableMod, and they look absolutely gorgeous. They look really nice in the case. I actually want to get some more lighting so I can actually show it off a little more. But the end result looked amazing. So these are all the wires that come with it. Make sure you check the compatibility of the wires with your PSU. So yeah. And we're going to go ahead and start wiring everything in. As you can see, the AIO for the CPU is still not installed. That is one of the last things I've decided to do. So I'm just wiring everything, trying to get everything nicely put in the back. It's very dense wiring, so yeah, they're very thick wires. They're extremely good quality, so I wouldn't have to worry. The most difficult thing is cable managing those. So now I'm finally putting the correct bracket on the AIO, the AM4 bracket, and I'm removing the Intel bracket. Be careful when you do this. You do not want to smudge the thermal paste that's already on there. So we have the correct bracket on, and be mindful for where the wires are going to go and where you're going to wire it. And it's very simple. Following the instructions on the book, it states it should be done top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, 1, 2, 3, 4. I always thought it was opposite corner, but according to the CLC 360 installation guide, this was the way to do it. So do not over tighten. You do not want to damage your CPU. And there is the peel, which I noticed at the last minute, honestly. It looked even better after taking the peel off. So this is where we're at right now. We are finally at our last step, which is installing the GPU. So unfortunately, I was not able to put it in the top PCIe slot because of the cabling of the AIO. So if I had flipped the AIO the other way around, it would have worked. But a better position, it's not necessarily the best, but a better position for the AIO was for the intakes from the bottom. So I went ahead and made the compromise, and I used the second PCIe slot. Well, in the book it'd be considered the third, but the second ×16 PCIe slot. And although it runs in ×8, it shouldn't have any huge difference on the performance of the GPU. It still runs like a great GPU. So now just finally putting the final PCIe cables in, making sure they look nice and cable sleeved and managed. And finally, we installed the top AIO. We went ahead and turned on the GPU. It took a minute for the fan to ramp on, but it did, as you see. 3, 2, 1, and we are set to go. It's an absolutely gorgeous looking case. I'm very happy with my purchase. The Noctuas fit very nicely and made sure they were blowing in the right direction. Not a great time to do that, by the way. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the build as much as I did. This plans to be my rig for a very long time. There's really no need to upgrade from this for at least 5 years minimum. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Take care. Just a bit of dancing lights at the end for your guys' entertainment purposes. It doesn't normally go that fast.